What's up, Liam? How are you doing, brother? I'll take your silence as a great.
Yeah,
Great.
he's usually working during the
Yeah.
afternoon, so he's a big
No,
chat guy, which is
no,
awesome.
no problem at all, brother. You're here, and that is 99% of the battle. 99% doing great, sir. See, I was right. I make assumptions, and sometimes they're right. Yes, sir. Bam. Yeah, we'll wait a few minutes here, see if anybody else pops in. Mr. Joey is busy, probably running through cornfields right now. He's in Ohio. Who knows what they do up in Ohio? I don't ask questions. Ask me to do that.
Milking something.
Milking something. Who knows? You know what I mean? Any Meet the Parents fans in here? I got nipples. Can you milk me? I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe you can. Maybe you can't. I don't know. But whatever he's doing, that's lovely. The only topic that I had in mind, and I'll kick this to you guys as well. If you guys want to hear, we can riff on really anything. The only thing I was going to talk about, and this is a topic that I know we've talked about in the past, is just intuitive eating, nixing the counting calories, because of course you don't want to have to count calories for the rest of your life, and how to do that, and finding alternative methods that work for you, and really finding out how your body operates. Some people really thrive on low carbs. Some people thrive on a little bit more carbs, but you always have to take into consideration what your physical activity level is. Perfect example of that is Mr. Jeff there posting a picture of him mountain biking today. That's a guy who might want to increase his carbs just simply because he's putting more physical activity out, physical exertion out into the world. So that was my topics. And if you guys have anything as well, I would love to hear it. But bam. Take a sip of the best diet pop out there. Diet Sunkist. Oh my God, so delicious.
Haven't had that one yet.
Oh, so delicious. I keep trying new ones. Like, was on Diet Dr. Pepper. That's delicious. And then somebody's like, oh, let's try Diet A&W. That's delicious.
Good.
No caffeine, no calories. That's great. And then I'm on this orange Sunkist, Diet Sunkist right now. Delicious. Had Diet Squirt last week too. That's a little unknown one. Jeff, what are you munching on, brother?
I got some ground beef with taco seasoning.
Nice.
Just trying to get that protein.
Nice.
Yeah, sorry to eat, but nutrition call I thought might be appropriate.
Very appropriate. Very appropriate.
That's a hallmark default King's meal right there. Just ground beef with some kind of seasoning. That's like a man's meal right there. So,
dude, I still have 6 ground beef patties in my fridge. I ate 2 this morning. I eat 2 every morning. They're just so easy, and it's so cheap and inexpensive, and you can season it up a million different ways. And there's the versatility of ground beef is amazing. And that's why I never give any premise to people who say eating healthy is difficult. It's expensive. It's not. You find all these different modalities like ground beef. There is 100 different things you can do with ground beef. For instance, last week I seasoned my ground beef with more of an Old Bay-ish type seasoning, and this week I did garlic, and that's a simple thing. Last week I was doing the sugar-free ketchup, and this week I'm doing sugar-free barbecue sauce. It's like these little subtle changes that changes a whole entire meal, which is absolutely amazing. And this kind of goes into my intuitive eating spiel as well, because let's see what Liam said.
That's awesome, dude.
I never really had ground turkey. Not saying
it's a lot.
Do you like it a lot? I hear that a lot from people. It's super lean, isn't it?
Yeah. Lower fat, just as much protein. It's a little more expensive though. So
what do you offhand know a macro breakdown of 4 ounces calories protein wise? I know 4 ounces of 90-10 is 200 calories, 22 grams of protein. Didn't know what it did stacked up beside that.
I just Googled it because I didn't know offhand, but it's 10. Yeah, let's see. 10 grams of fat, 22 grams of protein. So not bad for 4 ounces.
No. How many calories? Probably about 200 too, if it's about 22 grams of protein.
193.
Damn. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And another, before you, I don't want to interrupt you, Alex, but another hack is, a lot of people say, 93.7 ground beef is really expensive, which it is. It's not cheap. Lean ground beef is not cheap. A hack you can always do, I did this in college and such, is buy 80-20 and just drain the fat out after you cook it in the pan, right? I still, I'm not going to try and ballpark the macros. I usually just, input it how it is. But like there's like I think there's a significant difference when you're draining that fat out and not eating all that. It probably makes a big difference, honestly. So yeah, nothing wrong with some 80-20, and I think it tastes better. So
It
that
does
lean
taste.
ground beef, yeah, it's like eating styrofoam sometimes if you cook it too much. So
Yeah, 100%. I usually cook when I meal prep those burgers. I usually cook them to about a medium rare, just because I know I'm going to be reheating them. And if I would cook them to a medium well, which I typically would, if I was cooking them to order at that moment, just because I know I'm going to heat them up and they're going to get to a medium well whenever I do it, because I've also meal prepped my food and then reheated it and it tasted like styrofoam because there's little to no fat, which is where all the taste is. And you get what you get. But this goes into intuitive eating for me. And one thing before I kind of go into spiel is I'd like to know, Jeff, have you felt the need to up your carbohydrates at all, feeling a little energy drained because you've been biking a little bit more and exerting that energy?
Yeah, I have noticed in the evenings that I feel like I do need a lot more carbs. And that's something I need to kind of dial in, because my carb selection hasn't been all that great. So I probably should add some in during the day that are a little better for me. Some rice or something, because I've been like, having some ice cream or something like that
Hell yeah.
instead of front loading with something that's maybe a little bit better.
What has
Or,
been your carb selection besides the ice cream?
Just like tortilla, like really tortilla shells. I did have some rice, some rice with some beef the other day. Really, I don't eat a lot of carbs as a thing. And I think I probably should add them back in, because I've been running and like this week's been a lot of running and a lot of bike riding, which, is sort of new to my workout mix. It's been and the mountain biking just drains it. Yeah.
So what I found to be successful for me, and this is where testing comes in, because everybody's body is going to be different in how they respond to certain nutrients. That's for sure. It also depends when your physical activity is, in what part of the day are you doing your physical activity. So if I gave you a rundown of my day, for instance, like I'm waking up at 6 a.m., I'm going for a 2-mile run, I'm doing 100 push-ups, I'm coming home, and that's when I'm eating. That first meal of the day is typically going to be the highest protein meal of the day. All my meals center around 50 to 60 grams of protein, but I like to front load the majority of the protein in the first 2 meals, because the third meal of the day, which is typically dinner, I like to have that more carb focus. And there's a reason for that. So all my meals at least have 30 grams of protein. So what I found for myself is I'm doing the endurance running in the morning and I'm doing physical weightlifting at night. And because of that fact, heavy protein in the morning, which is satiating me until about lunchtime, having another heavy protein dominant meal, but now I'm sprinkling in more carbs. And then the third meal that is typically after lifting is the heaviest carb based meal. And the reason for this is circadian rhythm. And if you have a normal sleep and wake cycle, if you prioritize that protein further in the morning, what that's going to help do is going to help satiate you and carry you throughout your day. The reason for the carbs at the end of the day and the heavy carb load at the end of the day is, again, circadian rhythm, and it's going to help produce the melatonin that's necessary in the glycogen through the carbohydrates that are going to heal and repair your body. And actually, if you time that meal about 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed, you'll find that if everything else is in order, you're going to bed around the same time, you're waking up at the same time, you're going to find yourself kind of easing into that sleep process, because again, the carbohydrates at that time are going to help kick up your melatonin production in your body and help you go to sleep. Now, again, this could be all changed depending upon when you're exerting that physical activity throughout the day. Now, I just gave you my example. I'm running in the morning, I'm weightlifting at night. You could flip that backwards and you could still have that same template of eating and it could be successful to you. But again, this is where everybody's bodies are different, and you got to really be in tune with how your energy levels are throughout the day. Because if you're having that midday crash, which I was having midday crashes here about a few months ago, probably half a year ago or so, and I found out, one, it was because I wasn't doing cardio in the morning. The second reason is it was like a 50-50 split between carbohydrates and protein in the morning. And the third thing was I was really over caffeinating in the morning and way too soon. So what I mean by too soon is I listened to a Huberman Lab podcast a while ago, and he says to give your body about 90 minutes after waking up until you have that first dose of caffeine. And the reason for that is because your ATP isn't properly in tune. I guess your stress is a little bit high when you wake up because, of course, you've been dormant for about 7 to 8 hours and you wake up and your stress is a little high. You need that time to level that out. And when you do that, the caffeine is actually more potent, I would say. And making those few little adjustments right there totally nixed my midday crashes, because what I was doing for a while, and I don't know if you guys do, and I'd be interested to hear it, if you took midday naps. Not long ones, 10 to 15 minutes, nothing long, but I found myself needing more of those naps. Now, again, I made these adjustments. I prioritized protein in the morning, carbohydrates at night, really dialed in my sleep and wake cycle. No more midday crashes, no more midday naps, and I felt energized throughout the day.
What kind of thing?
Yeah, I know
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think the past couple of days I've noticed, I think it's my sleep schedule has been way off, and might be partly due to the change in routine, but definitely getting a little tired in the afternoon. So that I might look into changing some things, and the late night carb cravings and whatnot. Sorry, Joe.
No, you're good. Well, one thing I was looking at, we talk about carbs and just, you know, you often see so much, like weightlifters, bodybuilders and stuff, that's like chicken and rice. That's like their meal, you know? And someone, I was just reading maybe on Twitter or something, but someone said like, why does everyone choose rice when like a baked potato is actually so much better for you in, you know, calories, vitamins, everything, you know, kind of, I think rice has a little bit more carbs, but, you know, like on the surface, a baked potato is actually healthier for you than white rice. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were around that. And, you know, why does the potato get such a bad rap? Is it because everyone just smothers it in butter and sour cream, or what?
I think it's partially because of two parts. One, laziness, and two, because chicken and rice is like, when you think of chicken and rice, you think of a bodybuilder. You know what I mean? So people have attributed rice to be the ultimate carbohydrate because, one, it's been around for so long, chicken and rice with bodybuilders, and two, it's so much simpler to make than baked potatoes. That's really what I think it comes down to, because you're 100% right, Drew. Baked potatoes are one of the most superior carbohydrate options. And even more so than that, I only learned this a few months ago. Baked potatoes have more potassium in them than a banana. And I did not know that they're like a powerhouse of a food, and they're so delicious too. I've been meal prepping them for the past, there you go. I've been meal prepping them for the past 4 weeks, and they're so easy. You make a dozen of them at one time and you put them in your fridge. You have baked potatoes all week. Put butter on them. It's fantastic. Put a bunch of salt on it. It's fantastic. And they're so versatile. I would prefer people choose the baked potato opposed to rice any day of the week. The profile is about the same. The baked potato wins on micronutrients. And even more so than that, if you have a sweet tooth, cook sweet potatoes. They are equally as micronutrient dense as baked potatoes, a little bit less than baked potatoes, but they're delicious, because then every time I eat a sweet potato, I feel like I'm doing something wrong, because I'll put a little bit of butter on there. I'll douse that sucker in honey and a little cinnamon. It tastes like you're eating dessert, but it's so delicious. So delicious.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, I agree with Alex too. Like on a micronutrient scale, potatoes are better. And they actually, I think they're less calorie dense as well. So you can actually eat more potatoes, eat a little more volume of food, which I think it probably comes down to a convenience thing. Also a palate thing. Like potatoes are good, but I don't know. I think white rice tastes amazing with like anything. And so a lot of those guys, they're living so strict. They're probably trying to find the most palatable food possible to eat. Rice has less fiber than potatoes, so it might be a little easier on the gut, a little easier to digest as well. And so, but you're right, Drew. Like if you're looking like, hey, what's the biggest bang for your buck calorie wise and nutrient wise? It's potatoes every time. They're definitely slept on, and they're so freaking cheap. I mean, both are cheap.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So
it's so funny because it's like, you think, okay, I'm dieting, so or I can't have a potato, but I'll eat white rice all day.
Dude, like one potato has like 70 calories in it. It's like nuts. It's like it's amazing. Like
and that with some Greek yogurt, it's like perfect.
Yeah, some hot sauce and a little bit of cheese, bacon bits. Yeah, it's good.
100 grams of rice per what Drew sent me has 130 calories. 100 grams of a russet potato has 95 calories. So it's actually lower in calories, and everything else pretty much checks out. There's a little bit more carbohydrates in the rice. Fats are about equal. The fiber is, the potato wins by about grams. Protein's about the same, and the water is about the same as well. So all things considered, I personally think that potatoes taste better than rice. Rice gets really old to me, even when I cook it in bone broth, lather it in butter, and put salt on it. I think it comes down to a personal preference at the end of the day, what you enjoy doing more. I would say that rice is a little more versatile in the sense that if you couple it with ground beef, there's a billion different things you can do. Potatoes are about the same. They're like a standalone food. You know what I mean? Rice is one of those foods that can be a standalone, but you can also add it as a mixture as well. So it really comes down to what you're willing to do per meal prep, which again, is really easy for either of them. You put the time aside 2 days a week or even 1 day a week just to meal prep this stuff. Bam, you're good to go. I used to do that with rice all the time, make 3 or 4 cups of rice, and like 3 or 4 cups of rice makes like literally 6 after it's all said and done, which I didn't learn that lesson too soon, man, because I don't know if anybody cooked rice for the first time. You put like 1 cup in there and then it expands to a shit ton. You're like, holy shit, I didn't think about this rice expanding, but it all comes down to your personal preference. But what I've learned with carbohydrates, and of course, as we all know, just from being in the health and fitness sphere and just being on Twitter, like people like to demonize carbohydrates and say that these are the things that make you fat. You know what I mean? Which of course we know that's not true. These are the things that fuel us. I think the most important thing to note about carbohydrates is when to time them throughout your day. I'd be interested to hear what your guys' breakfast is like in the terms of, have you done it before with heavy carbohydrates, and what was the result of that? Jeff, what comes to mind is when we were talking about oatmeal a long time ago, which is a funny outlier, which we can touch on that. But I'd like to know if you guys ever experienced trying more carb-centered breakfasts and how your experience with that was.
I end up getting a lot more hungry mid morning if I have a lot of carbs. Even oatmeal, people say it's filling. If it's not, if I don't have it with the right mix of protein, I'll be hungry an hour later.
I'm the same way. If I have like a heavy like protein and fat breakfast, I'm like good till like noon or 1. Like if I eat at like 8 or 9, it's weird. So
yeah, I almost forget to eat if I have enough eggs in the morning. So yeah. So I prefer to have, meat in the morning.
Drew, have you ever done a more carb-centered breakfast at all, and what was your experience?
Yeah, back in the day, I would do a lot of like toast and bagels and stuff like that in the morning.
Yep.
And yeah, I was always a midday, 2-3 o'clock. I'd be taking a nap and just be wiped out. So yeah, now I do some sort of ground meat, whether it's turkey or beef, or sausage, something like that, along with eggs every morning. And like Jeff said, I have to kind of force myself to go get lunch because I'm not, after 5 eggs and like 6 ounces of beef, I'm not hungry really at all until late.
Bagel cream cheese used to be my vice. Oh, bagel and cream cheese, delicious.
So good.
Yeah. Oh, dude, like a cheese bagel from Einstein's.
Oh yes, God, so yes, good. They are good. And I just it sucks. My fiance brought some of this home bagels the other day for breakfast, and I wanted to eat it so bad, but I just knew every time I do a carb-centered breakfast like that, before I even eat protein, like just as everybody already says, like it just wrecks my energy throughout the day. I'll feel good for like the next hour, but after that happens, I always feel the insulin drop after that, and I just zoink out after that. One interesting thing I seen a post from a girl that I follow on Twitter is she got a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, and she was running a bunch of tests in real time on there, which is really interesting. And for the people who work out in the morning, that is like the only time you can get away with kind of a carb-centered breakfast. And of course, because what I always say is like, if you're going to eat excessive carbs, time those around your workout times, whether it be before or after, because that's when your body wants those carbohydrates the most. But the interesting thing that she posted on there, she did her morning workout routine, which is mildly strenuous, and she did it fasted. And then after the fact, she had a carb-centered breakfast. And what she noticed is there was no spike in her insulin. The next day, she did the same exact thing, had a carb-centered breakfast, but she did not work out prior. And what she noticed was a very heavy spike in her glucose, followed by a rapid drop, which is essentially what we're talking about here. When you have a more carb-centered breakfast without physical activity, you're going to experience that drop. But when you do this physical activity and then time your carbs around that, you're not going to experience that drop. And especially in the morning, because that's when it's most important, because you're just getting started with your day. So you're basically starting 3 steps behind because you're starting out good, but then you're going to have that crash that's always followed by that. And that really leads into like the intuitive eating. Really what I wanted to talk about here is just like gravitating yourself towards not counting calories and really just eating food based upon how you know it makes you feel. People think meal prep is boring. People think living a healthy life is boring or constricting, and it doesn't have to be. In my case, it's mildly boring because the majority of my diet is boring. You know what I mean? I'm having these ground beef patties that are just seasoned. I'm mixing it with rice and stuff. Like, it's nothing that great. I have 5 or 6 meals that I just cycle around because I know they're good. Every single day, I'm essentially eating the same thing. I'm eating this ground beef. I'm eating a big bowl of fruit for more carbohydrates. I'm eating yogurt. I'm drinking kefir. And then my night is usually steak and then heavy carbs after that. What typically it's been baked potato. The only thing I'm counting in this process is, well, the first thing I'm doing is my diet is centered around foods I know that make me feel good, because that's what it's all about. More so cognition for me, because I like to think good and I don't like that fogginess you get in your brain, which I've experienced when I have heavy carbohydrate based diets that are centered around not workouts. That's why I always say center your carbohydrates around workouts. The only thing I'm tracking throughout my day is to make sure I hit this one benchmark. Every meal is over 30 grams of protein. Even when I'm having that midday snack of fruit, I'm also having a glass of kefir or a Fairlife protein shake. That's going to get me at least 40 grams of protein right there. Not to mention the hydration that the fruit is providing me, not to mention the spike in glucose that the fruit is providing me as well, because that's a healthy little boost you're going to get from that fruit also. Not to mention, depending upon what fruit you're having, I'm having watermelon and blueberries. Of course, the antioxidant profiles of both are amazing, but even more so than that, watermelon is one of these little hacks that you can use prior to lifting or post lifting, more so prior, because it really helps boost the nitric oxide in your bloodstream, which is going to help you feel more energized and get the pump really, really good, which is what you want when you're in the gym, because you want your blood to be circulating as fast as you possibly can to get to the targeted muscles you're working, which is going to repair them quicker, which is going to improve your stamina, which is going to essentially be a positive feedback loop to lift more weights in less time. Drew, you've been around the program here for a good amount of time. You're still tracking all your meals. Has there ever been a period where you dove more into the intuitive thing when you're traveling or anything? You're like, you know what, I can't get, for instance, you're in Croatia and you're traveling that whole time. It's like, yo, man, I don't know half the calorie profiles and this stuff, but I know the protein in my mind. I'm kind of counting it to hit that goal. Have you already experienced some of the intuitive eating into your life?
Yeah, and mostly when I'm tracking, I don't put everything in there. I pretty much put in there my protein sources to more track protein. So like fruit and my like kind of other stuff that I'm eating, I'm not even entering in there because yeah, I am trying to just do more of intuitive. And yeah, I think for the most part, it's you know when you're eating something you're supposed to, and it's something that's really not in line with what I should be eating. And I think as the months go on, it gets easier and easier. And yeah, I know that okay, I'm going out with friends for dinner tonight, so that's going to be a higher calorie meal. So let me go ahead and maybe cut back on what I have for breakfast and lunch a little bit to make some room for that higher calories. So you can it becomes pretty easy once you do track for a little bit, just to kind of get that baseline.
100%. And tracking at the start should be a necessity for everybody, because people really get surprised when they start tracking food. They're either surprised about how much they're not eating, or they're very surprised about how much they actually are eating. I've run a lot of experience with gentlemen who say, like, I don't know how I got to this weight. Like, I don't eat that much. I'm like, track all your food for 2 days. And they track all their food. They're like, holy shit, I didn't realize I was eating this much, because stuff adds up. Even when you have the little packages, because the highly processed food packs so many calories into such a little bite size that you don't really realize, because you're looking with your eyes instead of the nutrient profile of these foods. We talk a lot about 80-20 in here as well. And this should be no surprise to you guys that, Drew, you illustrated this perfectly. You have these days where you're going to go out to dinner with friends. It's not going to be in the lines of what your goals are right now. So what you essentially do is you front load a majority of the protein throughout your day to kind of make up for the stuff that's going to happen in the night. This is why I love intuitive eating. And this is why a lot of people are surprised when in my real life, when they see me eating some of the things I'm eating, like Dairy Queen, or I'm having that piece of pie after dinner, or maybe I'm having a drink or something. Like, how do you do that? You look so fit. It's 80-20, man. I'm not putting myself in a box. I want to enjoy that Blizzard from Dairy Queen. I want to enjoy that pie. I want to enjoy that double bourbon on the rocks after dinner or some. And the reason I'm able to do this is, one, because I am healthy, and two, because I've got my nutrition down to I'm front loading everything. My protein is usually hit, especially if I know I'm going out to dinner with friends. I'm usually hitting my whole protein goal that day. So I hit that number. And then after the fact, I'm doing whatever I want, because what you're going to find is once you hit that protein number and achieve your goals before you even go out, that gives you free reign to enjoy that dessert and do those things. And you're less likely to overeat because you've already hit your goals in that sense. And then, of course, trying to have a protein dominant meal at dinner as well is a great go-to, which is something I do already. Low carb isn't for everybody, but I've learned that that's what my body thrives on. I think the best on low carb. I act the best in my body. I have the most energy with low carb. And that's just what I found to be successful. Now, Drew, for instance, he could be the complete opposite. He could really thrive on high protein, but he could also thrive on like a medium, higher carbohydrate based diet as well, depending upon what his physical activity level was throughout the day. This is where testing comes into play and seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and not being afraid to pull things out and not being afraid to put things back in as well. But it all comes down at the end of the day to how you feel. I wouldn't shill a low carbohydrate diet to everybody. I think it is one of the most superior diets. But again, everybody's body's different. If Mr. Vinny was in here right now, who's training for an Ironman right now, if I told him to go low carb, which I think we've talked about before, he might be dogging it in that bike training because he doesn't have the adequate fuel to fuel him because he's exerting so much energy throughout the day. So it's just about getting smart and knowing what micronutrients do what to you. Protein satiates you, it makes you feel good, it makes you feel full, and it gives you the energy to go on. But you also know that carbohydrates are essential to life and also energy levels. The blood, one of the most interesting things about carbohydrates is they burn straight into sugar, essentially right then and there. Another interesting thing about that is the blood-brain barrier prioritizes, there's almost like a fast track from the stomach to the blood-brain barrier. And there's only one micronutrient that has access to that super highway straight to the brain. That is sugar. Your brain's going to prioritize sugar every single time. So when you eat those carbohydrates based upon when you're doing physical activity, it is going to get mainlined right to your brain, which is going to give that essentially a shot of adrenaline, be up and at 'em. But if you time that at the wrong time for a breakfast, that's when you're going to have that short burst of energy followed by that crash, compared to centering it around exercise, or that could even be a walk or something as well, is going to see the best benefits for you. But this is also one of those things that it's not bad to fail at. Like my previous example of having to take all those naps and having those energy drains. Like in nutrition, I think that failure is the best thing ever, because you need to learn how you operate the best at. You're like, oh, I ate this bagel here at noon and I knew I had a huge crash after that. And I've done this for 2 weeks and it's the same every day. Well, now I know that the bagel at noon is probably not the way to go. Maybe I should switch that out to have like ground beef or chicken or steak or whatever the case may be. And then you test that for 2 weeks and you're like, oh, wow, I don't have that crash anymore. Bam, you just figured something out. And then you move forward and you just keep plugging these things in. That's like me with my run last week. I ran 6 miles, and before I ran that 6 miles, I had a big bowl of blueberries and watermelon drizzled with honey. Dude, that run felt so good. The next week, I did it fasted. Did not feel as good. So I was learning, I was like, oh, I carb load before this, and the run felt effortless. The last 2 miles, I was able to go from an 8:30 pace to a 7:20 pace. Couldn't do that fasted. Oh, wow, the fuel source really works. Same thing with lifts. And that's the interesting thing. This is a question I actually just had to field last week because a gentleman did a lift. So he did the same lift 2 weeks in a row. The first week, he did amazing. Second week, he didn't do as amazing. He's like, yo, man, like I was doing the same weight. He was trying to beat himself. He was trying to either A, get more reps, or B, he was trying to move the weight up and do the same reps. What he found was, he's like, yo, the second lift did not nearly go good as the first lift. I was like, well, what was different? He's like, well, the lift was the same. Like, did you eat anything beforehand? He's like, well, no, the second one, I didn't really eat anything beforehand. The first week he did. And then looking at his profile, he had a good mixture of protein and carbohydrates before the first lift, gave him power, gave him energy. Next week, he lifted fasted. Well, of course, you're not going to have the same profile as you did the week before because you figured out, oh, if I eat this meal before I go to the gym, I have more energy and stamina to perform these lifts the same. And I've had the same thing happen as well. And whether it be a whole list of reasons, hydration isn't the same as the week prior, your sleep wasn't as good as the week it was prior, your nutrition wasn't as good as the week it was. There's so many instances as to why you didn't do as good as you did the week prior in the lift. And nutrition is one of those big pillars in there. After a while, like things like this, this is the default Kings. And after a while, like all these things start to become defaults. I have a major sweet tooth. I love candy. I really do. It's amazing. Every time I walk into the same grocery store downtown, they always try to funnel you through the sweet section. And they even put them up front near the cash register because they know suckers like me are going to pick those Skittles up every time. But I had this thought in my mind. It's a reoccurring thought because, again, back to the example here, a few days ago, my fiance brought home not only bagels, but donuts as well. Those babies look delicious. Early in the morning, didn't even eat yet. I just got done with a run. I'm like, oh, shit. I would fuck one of those donuts up. It's going to happen. But I have this like devil and this angel on my shoulder. You know what I mean? Because I know how good I operate on the diet that I have, which is beyond simple. Protein dominant, carbohydrates at certain times throughout my day. And when I'm sourcing those carbohydrates, I'm sourcing them through potatoes, rice, fruit, or honey. Like those are my main carbohydrate sources. And the kefir has some carbohydrates in there as well, but it's nominal, about 57 grams per 32 ounces, which isn't shabby. But I just know how I'm going to feel. And I'm almost like weighing those options. It's like, all right, do I kind of want to be lethargic in the cognition department today, or do I want to be really clicking today? And I always think that because I know how this food makes me feel. And why I think it's important for you really anybody who is eating food to really gauge how they feel within the next 0 to 1 hour after they eat food. Because once you know that, then you're going to be less likely throughout your days. Like just use an example, like Drew has a bunch of shit on his docket tomorrow. Like he's got a boatload of calls. He's got some important shit to do. And Drew knows through example from before that if he wakes up and has a heavy carbohydrate breakfast, like he's going to have a boost of energy, but he's going to bog out and his cognition is not going to be where it wants to be, which is going to mean that Drew might wake up in the same instant to him. Somebody might bring him a big old box of donuts, his favorite kind too. He's like, oh, I love these donuts, but I have so much stuff going on that I don't want to eat this because I know my cognition is going to suffer because of this. It's almost knowing the food profile and the consequences that come with eating these foods at the time of day that make you less likely to indulge in those foods. Having those consequences in your mind for me has been the biggest thing for me to kind of say no to some of these foods. I've always said that I'm not better than anyone who indulges in like crappy food all the time because I myself enjoy crappy food. The big thing about it is not having it around me. And even more so than that, if I don't have the power to not have it around me, have those consequences in my mind and know what my day looks like. Like, hey, do I want to have energy and do I want to be going, or do I want to suffer the consequences because I wanted to indulge in instant gratification right now and then? That's just the consequences I run through my mind. I found success with it. Again, like anything in nutrition, it's not a foolproof plan. There's always anomalies that happen. There's always those times you break out and you say, you know what, screw it. But for the most part, if you follow that template, that is going to be your best friend in intuitive eating because you know the consequences of eating these food at these times. You know what's going to happen. That's like Jeff, if you wanted to go out for a bike ride, you know what I mean? Do you want to be all bogged down with all the crappy food you can put in your body beforehand, or do you want to feel powerful as you're pedaling that bike through those mountains? You know the foods that make you feel powerful, and you know the foods that don't. So, of course, you're most likely going to go to the foods that give you power opposed to the ones that bog you down and make you feel like you have 400 pounds in your stomach while you're pedaling the bike. It's just putting these consequences to real life play while you're doing it. And as always, the meal prepping is like your best friend when you're intuitive eating. It's so easy, so nice. It gives you peace of mind, which I think is the best thing about meal prep is it gives you a peace of mind. And that doesn't mean you have to separate 7 containers out for all 7 days of the week. My meal prep literally looks like a big Tupperware, and I put all the burgers in there. I'll meal prep my baked potatoes or rice, or they're in a Tupperware. So it's just single serve every time I take it out. Like that's just how I have my mind at ease. So I know I can go to the fridge and I can pull those 2 patties out. I can pull 1 baked potato out, throw them in the microwave, bam, bam, done. And it just puts things on autopilot, because what I found for myself is the more you meal prep and the more you plan out. I know Jeff and I have talked about this before, maybe Drew and I have as well, but like I meal prep every single night when I'm doing my nightly journaling. And when I write at the bottom, like I'm writing out my meals I'm going to have the next day. And the reason I do that is it gives me such a peace of mind. I'm not going downstairs and I'm not prepping them into different containers, but what I'm doing is I'm just writing down the meals I'm going to have tomorrow, counting how much protein. Oh, okay, I had over 200 grams of protein with these 3 or 4 meals. Perfect. Peace of mind, done. I wake up the next day. It's no guesswork. It's no opening up the fridge and freezer and be like, what the hell am I going to eat today? I go to this little notepad I have. Oh, I know what I'm eating today. And even more so than that, I have it made. Bam, bam. For
it's been
90
really working
minutes.
for me to have like family over for a barbecue and then just make a shit ton extra. So
Bam.
do my meal prep for.
Yeah. And that's perfect. You know what I mean? Any way you can do it. And it works double when you have family coming over to grill, because now instead of making a dozen burgers, you're like, I'm making 2 dozen burgers because the other dozen are going to be for me during the week. So it just makes it so much easier. And the peace of mind's amazing, because that's just one less thing you have to think about. You make a 90-minute time commitment to making all this food at the start of the week. Life's good. Life's good. And that's one of those things, because there's so many skills that are transferable, similar to what I always talk about, cold showers or ice baths. Like they're not for the health benefits. Yes, there might be health benefits. I do it for the benefit of my mindset, because I build discipline in that rolls off to other areas of my life. You build discipline in starting to really structure your nutrition and knowing what makes you feel good. That is a skill that transfers to other areas of your life and so on down the pike. Like these skills are absolutely amazing to have, because when you make your food like this and eat intuitively, you're training your mind and your life to be more schedule oriented. You're training yourself to have that discipline to really care about what you're putting in your body. And that just translates to an overall sense of well-being. Your self-confidence goes up. Just everything generally about your lifestyle goes up because you feel like you're in control. I've had a few weeks this year. The past 2 weeks I've been on point with it. The prior 3 weeks, I wasn't really on point with meal prep. And what I found is those 3 weeks that I wasn't meal prepping and really planning out my days, it's not that my days didn't go good. It's just, I had this sense of like, I was trying to always catch up. And you guys ever feel that? Like you feel like you're behind. You're like, I'm rushing. These past 2 weeks with meal prep and intuitive eating, dude, it just feels so good. It feels like everything's where it should be. And I just feel like everything's clicking. And it just makes me feel better, which makes me perform better, which all around just makes me feel more productive.
Like when I don't do some sort of prepping or at least planning, then I typically end up just like, oh, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to just make a shake or protein shake or whatever. And it's just like, just kind of, which is still, you're still getting protein, still fine, but it's not, as good as having, whole foods and all that.
That's the same thing I found as well. I would gravitate towards the Fairlife protein, which it was the same thought in my mind. It's like, you know what, at least I'm getting this protein, but at the same time, I just feel better when I prioritize a single source ingredient whole foods. I just feel better when it's food compared to a shake. Right. And that was just sitting in the back of my mind because, now I'm exerting the energy to do the shake when I could have just spent the time on Sunday to make all this food, which is easy as hell, and just do it. It's just a peace of mind that it gives me.
Yeah.
Ba-boom. I see you're still rocking that red light, Jeff. I love it.
Yeah, keep it on yeah, it seems to help. I have a problem with my left Achilles, had for a while, and it seems to keep it from inflaming. I don't know.
Nice. That's one of That's one of the benefits, brother. Keep rocking it. That was one of the keystones in my back recovery. BPC 157 and that red light, dude, every single night. And side note, that BPC 157, I was shilling it for a long time because a lot of people are dealing with injuries, but I've been dealing with my hand. I took a few shots to my hand this week. Interesting thing about cell phones, man. This has nothing to do with nutrition, but if you hold your phone a long time in your hand, my chiropractic friend told me this. I told him, I was like, dude, my right hand just hurts, man. He's like, you doing too much of you know what? I was like, no, man, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? He's like, no, you're probably holding your phone too much. I'm like, oh, no shit. You're right. It's holding my phone too much. And it's, an iPhone XL. So it's bigger. And my hand was getting inflamed, man. It was almost mimicking carpal tunnel. Been doing BPC 157, like little hand stretches in front of the red light, dude. And it feels amazing.
What's BPC 157?
It's a peptide. So your body actually naturally creates this amino chain. It's a non-essential amino chain in your body. The BPC 157 is already created naturally in your body. If you add and supplement with a little bit more to the targeted area wherever it's hurt. So for your instance, your Achilles, for my instance, my hand, if you do, you can either do it two ways, locally inject it or topically. I've done both methods. I prefer the muscular injection just because it's more rapid. Some people have a problem with needles. I do a little bit, but I found that to be the best thing. But the healing properties in it really expedite the healing, because what it does is once you inject that or apply the topical cream on there, it's essentially signaling to your body, hey, send more energy and resources to this area because you've supplemented with BPC 157 there. I've seen it do not only amazing things in my life, but amazing things in other people's lives as well. And there's been cases as well where it doesn't really do anything. I know a guy a few months ago was having shoulder pain. I recommended he uses that. He didn't really see the alleviation that most people would in his case. Now, again, this could be just more of a deep-rooted issue that he has to figure out and solve through medical reasons, maybe physical therapy or some. But the vast majority of the cases that I've been a part of who have used that supplement, they've seen night and day recovery. I went from literally not being able to take a few steps walking, thinking I slipped a disc, realizing I didn't slip a disc. And I supplemented that for 4 days. And a week later, I was back running. That was before my race in February. I thought I went from thinking I was never going to walk right again to literally running the next week. Just with that, I did 5 injections of BPC 157 in a row with stretching, with red light. And literally like that, I was healed up and ready to go again.
You just inject it locally to where your injury is?
Mm-hmm. Or topically. And you can also take it orally as well.
Okay.
It's a very interesting supplement with a whole host of benefits.
You're gonna get a segment in tomorrow's Probe the Industry call.
There you go. Put it on there. Put it on there. Put me on there. I'll have to send Joey a good picture to send, man. I think I got a good tinfoil hat picture. Anything I can do. Funny story. I went to my girlfriend bartends at this local club, and I went down there last night it was wing night last night. I always go down for wings because she doesn't eat her employee meal, so I do. So I go down there for wing night. She cooks me a dozen of wings, dry ranch powder sauce on the side. And a little hack for anybody out there. I wish I would have learned this sooner. 1, I don't like to get sauce all over my fingers. I just don't like it. And 2, that's where all the calories are, in the sauce. You know what I mean? You get a sauce, you get like 4 ounces of the sauce that they douse over a dozen of wings. You just took those wings, a dozen of wings that probably have like 50 grams of protein and probably like 400 calories. You just made those almost 2,000 calorie meal because you have freaking almost 1,000 calories worth of sauce on there. Sauce has so much calories. So I get my sauce on the side. Anywho, there's this guy beside me, and I guess he brought my fiance some deer sausage. I seen it in the fridge, and we were talking about it. And just in general conversation, he's like, well, I hear you're a trainer. And I said, yeah. And we started talking about stuff. And I brought up my back injury, and I started talking down to the hospital so bad because they sucked. They weren't good. They didn't know their job. And I just started talking mad shit. And then that's when he told me that he's a nurse there. I was like, huh. Wish you would have sprinkled that on before I went on a 5-minute tirade about how much the medical industrial complex sucks. But what are you going to do? You know what I mean? But this is the state of the medical industrial complex. Now I feel like it's a PTI call because now you got me on a tangent, Jeff. But this guy was not in shape. You know, he's slugging down Bud Lights like it's his job. He's got a big old gut. He's not in good health. You know, pounding down Marby Reds. I was like, yo, dude, this is the picture of American healthcare right here. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, I kind of have the same feeling about half of my relatives are in the medical industry somehow, and just the way they approach some of these issues are ridiculous. Without going too far into it or putting on the tinfoil hat too much, it's like,
Yeah,
I can't stand it. So.
I have one aunt who is an RN. I have another aunt who is a physician's assistant. I have another aunt who works in the assurance industry, and those conversations are very interesting. The normal conversation around the topics that we talk about in this program are a 180 of what the mainstream directions are essentially. And it's quite sad to see that. I always strive to tell people, test what works for you, kind of similarly to how I'm telling you guys this whole conversation, to really just test how these foods fit into your life and how they make you feel at the end of the day. If you wanted to take it a step further, this is something I've never traveled down. One of the guys inside this program did it, and it was so eye-opening for him, and I want to do it as well. Get a continuous glucose monitor just to see how some of these foods pair up with my life. Because again, you can just do it without it just to see how you feel after the fact. But some of the foods that this guy was eating, now he was pre-diabetic. Through this program and through doing some of these modalities, he literally got rid of that pre-diabetic status. He was getting off a lot of his medications, and he got that CGM through insurance, and he started testing a lot of foods. And the conclusion that he came around, he has such a better respect about food because he knows, like he's seen it on his screen. This is what it does to my blood sugar. This is what this food does to my blood sugar. And it's just such an eye-opening experience. So it's definitely something that I want to do for 30 to 90 days, just to test some of these foods that really I'm eating every day. And I want to know how they stack up with my glucose, because that's really, think of that as your throttle in your life. You know what I mean? Like you can throttle up, but you're just going to come down. But if you know the foods that make you feel good without spiking that blood sugar, bam.
That continuous glucose monitor, do you have to have that installed by a medical professional, or you can do it yourself?
There's a bunch of brands out there right now that are doing direct to consumer. So essentially you just sign up and you do your medical profile, and I think they have a doctor overseeing your stuff. But after that, they literally just send you the box, and you can insert the little monitor in the back of your arm, because it's like a little needle that's like on a sticker, and you just put it on there, and then it'll read depending upon what their software is, typically on your phone. And then you can just do it by yourself. And there's also ways as well, if you have a primary care physician, you can get them prescribed as well and go through insurance and get them for cheaper and do it for a set period of time. This gentleman that I referenced on here, that's what he did. He went through his insurance, got it through his insurance, and then got everything set up there. So I think he paid little to nothing because it all went through his insurance and was covered through his insurance. So that's the route he decided to take.
Okay.
Funny thing about that, though, that guy lost 15 pounds, got out of his pre-diabetic stage, and his doctor had the gall to say, not because of your weight loss, sir, it's because of the medication. Needless to say, he was mad, and he is now getting a new primary care physician because he's like, I can't believe this lady's that dumb. It's like, really, lady? Like, I take, like, this is like after 60 plus days of us working together, like, he does all this, he loses weight, he finally starts to eat right, and like the doctor's like, yeah, who cares about your weight loss? It was the medication. It's like, no, man, it was not the medication.
Yeah.
That's always the first solution. I went into like a year ago, I've always had like skin issues and stuff like that. And a year ago, I went to a dermatologist, and immediately she just looks at it. It's okay. Here's a prescription for this pill. Here's this, topical steroid, and one other thing she recommended. And, nothing changed. Nothing got better. And then literally like 2 months after starting with DK, like my skin issues are pretty much gone. I get little issues here and there, but it's like, it was all diet related, the skin problems I had. And, that's not one thing she ever mentioned. It's like, well, what's your diet like? So it's kind of crazy that the first solution for everything is just get a pill.
And I believe there's a bunch of reasons for that. I don't fully blame the doctors and nurses who like prescribe these medications because they're taught this. And I believe they're taught this for two reasons. One, of course, monetary reasons, because the people who fund these schools are the same ones who are making the pills. So it's a monetary investment to get these people to sell these pills. And the second thing is people are inherently lazy. If you told somebody, hey, I can get rid of your skin issues, two ways. The first way is going to be a 6-month process or 3 to 6 month process where you're going to have to work out, you're going to have to eat right. Or the second option will be you take this pill or take this lotion for 2 weeks and it'll solve your problem. 9 out of 10 people are going to choose option 2, which is very simple to do compared to the people who are like, you know what, I want a more long-term solution opposed to a Band-Aid. That's what you're going to get all the time. So I don't blame them all. But again, at the end of the day, if you ever want meaningful change in your life, you know, the route less taken is typically the route you want to take for these problems that you have in your life. Because as somebody who was on a bunch of antidepressants in the past, did not care for them at all. I'm sure there's some people out there who have seen success with these medications, who these medications were a keystone to these people changing their lives. That wasn't my particular story. I did not have a good time on those medications. They were essentially a Band-Aid to me. And the solution for me was more long-term. You know, I had to start eating better food. I had to start exercising. I had to start taking care of my health. This was not a solution that took a week to implement. This is a solution that took a year to implement to finally really get the wheels moving in my life. A majority of people that I've worked with in my local community through Narcotics Anonymous, you know, the failure rate of those programs are horrible. They're abysmal. I've worked with so many people who I've tried to take my approach of like, hey, let's just change everything. Screw putting a Band-Aid on it. A majority of people fall out when that happens because they're not willing to put in the work to really dive into figuring out what are the problems and the pillars to this problem and how can I fix it? So that's what it all comes down to at the end of the day. And, you know, to really, you know, it's a perfect segue and kind of a way to wrap it all together because, you know, a majority of people aren't going to take the steps to fix their life in that manner because it's time intensive and it takes a lot of work. But similarly to me talking about the ice, the cold exposure and why I do it, similarly to what I talk about meal prepping your food and like the confidence that gives you and the discipline that builds, all these things add into a person that if you have something that comes up in your life, say, Drew, you start having skin problems again, you're probably going to, because of everything that you've done so far, whether you know it or not, you're more inclined to not take the easy road, but now you're going to take the hard road. So you go to the doctor, be like, I'm having this eczema problem. You're going to be less likely to take that pill that's going to be the quote unquote quick fix. And you're more likely to go down the route of what am I eating? What have I started eating that produced this? What are the things that I just added to my life that have produced this negative result? And you're going to look to tear that down and fix it because of everything that you've implemented, the discipline in your life, even the littlest things like, hey, if you say you're going to journal at this time every day and do it, that's building a discipline to act on your better behalf when the situation like this comes up. That's why I like to say everything's intertwined. Everything. Think of that. You'll laugh at this, Drew. I thought that was what do you like to watch? You like to watch Dunder Mifflin. The Office. No, yeah. I was thinking of Always Sunny, that meme with Charlie where he's at that board. Like, everything's connected, man. You know what I mean? All these little things that you do in your day-to-day life, when you tell yourself you're going to do something and you do it, these all add into a full picture, which gives you the power in those moments in that doctor's office of, do I want to take the easy road or do I want to take the hard road?
Yeah, literally just happened like 3 weeks ago, right? A little breakout. I was like, what if I done differently? And I literally started going back and looking at like what I've eaten recently. And I realized I was back home and that was like, I always had like more sweets and stuff back home and sugar and stuff like that. And that's, that was pretty much why.
100%. And I've been doing that with my lifts because some of my lifts, man, they've been on point. And then I go there the next week and they're not. And I'm always diagnosing like, why was I so on point? A lot of it comes down to my diet. And dude, I'll tell you what, don't discount a big bowl of fruit before you go to the gym. I'll tell you what, that is a PED to me, man. Oh my gosh, drizzle it in honey. Like I am good to go. So good. Well, good deal, gentlemen. This has been a blast. Anybody got any cool weekend plans they're doing?
No, nothing this weekend.
No. Jeff, you do anything, brother?
I'm leaving Sunday for a work trip, so I got some planning to do around my workouts and things like that. But
Got you.
yeah. Actually, it's gonna be like a couple weeks of testing for me. I got this work trip, and then the following week I'm taking the family to Yellowstone. So
Ooh,
that's
nice.
gonna be tough to figure out. Yeah.
yeah. Nice. I also got July, basically whole July, I'm going to be traveling. So that's going to be a fun little experience as well. Traveling is like a hit or miss with me because you travel somewhere new. And if you're like me from the rural sticks, there's restaurants everywhere and you want to experience it all because you don't get this where you're from. You know what I mean? So it's always a little test to go out and just try to stay on point. So I understand that. Jacob, what about you, brother?
Just chilling, man. Daddy duty every weekend. So
Yeah,
I have no complaints. Love being with my daughter. So
hell yeah, brother.
Stuff.
Going
perfect
camp.
Saturday for me is an early morning weightlifting session, getting to walk in and hang out with my family. So
We're going to pack up
I'll
the
do-
car tomorrow. We're going camping for the weekend. That will be enjoyable to turn off the phone and just indulge in nature and Endure by Cam Haines because I need a little spark in my life.
So no half marathon this weekend? You were
Oh yeah,
talking about?
Sunday.
Oh, Sunday you're doing it after camping?
I'm
Oh,
coming out.
that's-
I'm coming out of the woods on fire.
That's a commitment right there. I'm exhausted after camping.
Yeah, dude. So I'm going. Well, usually I am as well, but that's because I take the old boozy booze. But I'm not taking the booze this time. I'm not taking the booze this time. I'm going sober, and I'm just gonna rock it, man. I'm coming out of there, hopefully feeling refreshed and going.
Sunday miles. It's going to be a big one.
It's gonna be a big one.
Have to start early, Jeff, before you leave.
Yeah, luckily, yeah. I was thinking either do it when I'm there because I'm going in Sunday because I can be there early Monday. Maybe I'll do it at night, but it might be. I'd rather run at home. So,
Yeah.
but it's trying to be my long running day. So we'll see
Mhm.
how far I get.
Where are you going,
Not
Jeff?
a half marathon. Where am I going for work? Santa
Yeah.
Cruz.
Santa Cruz. Got you. Cool.
Yeah.
Enjoy it, brother. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, beautiful at the beach there. So
Well,
Nice.
good stuff, gentlemen. I appreciate y'all.
Thanks.
We'll have to talk in the group chat there about getting another person down there for Florida. But thank you again, Drew, for doing all that. I appreciate your brother. It's going to be a great time to hang out down there with all y'all. And I'm excited for it. It's going to be a great weekend.
Yeah, sounds good. Definitely. All right. Have a good night.
See you, gentlemen.
thanks, guys.
Later.